let us close the eyes for a moment. Remembering God and the Masters, we will pray together. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May God protect us all. May we enjoy food together. May we pray and meditate together. May we attain wisdom through our study and discussion. May there be no conflict among us. May there be peace within and everywhere. Om. Amen. I bow to God. I bow to all the saints and sages of all times and places. I bow to the lineage of Kriya Yoga masters. Perceiving divinity in each one of you, I bow to you all. Good evening and welcome to this series of lecture on test of character. We are thankful to all the masters for their beautiful teachings they have given to us. In this series, we have talked about many characters or qualities to check whether we are strong in character. So our last one we discussed was about the self-confidence, how to build it. Today we are going to talk about the next test. It is quality number 13. This quality speaks about our restlessness of mind. Again, we have to ask the question. The question is, do you move around clumsily and noisily? We cannot sit idle. We cannot sit at one place even for meditation. We cannot sit longer. We have to move our body. We have to work. So when we work around, moving from one place to other place, even within home, within our ashram, within our workplace, when we move, how do we move? If you remember in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna had asked, Sthita pragyasya ka bhasha samadhisthasya keshava sthitadhi kim prabhasheta kim aseta vrajeta kim. How does he talk? A person of knowledge or a realized man, how does he talk? How does he walk? How does he sit? So even with our movement, one can know what kind of personality we are. So do you move around clumsily and noisily? It actually shows that you are careless. If you do, you are irresponsible and not conscious of others. Very often in group meditation, people are sitting nicely and suddenly a person enters late and walking in such a way that everybody gets disturbed because making so much noise with even with the clothes or opening the door, closing the door. So some people walk in meditation hall and everyone will know who has entered the hall. I remember Guruji. When he moves, nobody can know even. If you are with closed eyes, nobody will know. Once I remember, I was in Miami ashram. Guruji was taking rest in his room and I had to come to pick up a book. So after lunch, when he was taking nap, I didn't want to disturb him. So very silently, I entered the room. So I just put one of my feet inside the room, making sure there is no noise. And Guruji opened his eyes and he said, "What do you want?" Even I'm not making noise, he could know. So those who are in deep meditation, they surely get disturbed when somebody is walking around clumsily. Another incident I remember, it is from the Balashram. We have a school, residential school for the orphan and semi-orphan children in India. It's in the state of Orissa, almost 200 kilometers away from our main ashram in Jagannath Puri. So we all went for some program to Balashram. Then near Balashram, there is also ashram for mothers. We call it Matru Ashram. So in the Matru Ashram, early morning, there was some puja. I also went with Guruji, and I was at the gate because somebody was talking to me and asking for some information. Guruji already had entered, and suddenly I heard another brother monk called me that Guruji is calling you. So I moved quickly. While moving in the garden, there are some holy basil, tulsi plants. So my clothes were touching. I was not conscious of that. My clothes were touching, and Guruji observed that. And he told me, "Why can't you walk with peace? Your clothes are touching the holy basil, which is not good. So you should be conscious." So when we walk around, whether it is workplace or home, very swiftly, very silently, we should walk because it shows our state of mind, how restless we are. So if we walk around or move clumsily, that means we are restless, we are arrogant, and we are careless. We don't care for others. So such kind of behavior is not good for a spiritual person. So let us try to walk or move anywhere with peace, very slowly. Slowly in the sense that when it is needed to run, I'm not mentioning that, but be conscious. This is the message. Sometimes in the ashram, when I'm in my room working for Guruji's books, and some ashramite resident comes and bangs the door of toilet. So you can know who has entered. However, so this is the 13th test. Now, the 14th test, it is more important because many of us have this habit or tendency. The 14th test, the question is, are you inclined to procrastinate? Are you inclined to procrastinate? Means, do you postpone things? Now, you have to ask yourself because many times we do it. In the schools, we had studied some couplets of great Saint Kabir. I think it was in my 6th grade of Hindi class. This couplet talks about the time management and procrastination. Sant Kabir is telling, काल करे सो आज करे सो अब, पल में परलय होएगी, बहुरी करेगा कब. Simple meaning, tomorrow's work, do today. What you have decided to do tomorrow, better to do it today. And today's work, don't postpone, do it now, in the present moment. Because pal mein paralay hoegi means if the moment is lost, how the work will be done? Paralay means dissolution. Because in one moment, if dissolution happens, of course not going to happen now, but if everything is dissolved, then where is the time? So message is that don't postpone the things, but do it in proper way, as time is God. Guruji says time is God, time never waits. Time and tide waits for no one. Guruji also says that procrastination is thief of time. It steals our time, and this recovery cannot be made. Once we lose a moment, it is gone forever. So we should respect time, time will respect us. There are two primary choices in life. One is to accept the conditions as they exist, or accept the responsibility for changing them. The best time, sometimes people complain. Why they complain? Oh, I didn't have time to do it. So that's why, and they make excuses. So there are two primary choices, either to accept the conditions as they exist or accept the responsibility for changing them. But there is no third scope to complain about not accomplishing something because of time. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, because we live in the glory of past, many of us. Oh, I was so nice. It was such a nice time. It was. Let us live in the present moment. So the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Okay, we lost opportunity, but now we still have one more opportunity. This is the second time when we can accomplish what we have decided to do. So not to postpone. Now question comes that why do people procrastinate? Is it because it's very common, but what is the reason? There are a couple of reasons. First reason is guilt. Some people, they just don't want to do it. There is some work, but they don't want to do it. And one of the reason is guilt, because they have some guilty conscience that if I do, something might happen. If I do, past bad experiences are also following that. Second reason is inadequacy. They don't know how to do it, or they are afraid that they will not do well. Third reason may be fear. Because of fear, they postpone, because they are uncertain of the outcome. Fourth reason is they think that it is irrelevant. It is not important to them, that's why they can postpone it. Fifth reason is time management, because people think that they have plenty of time to get it done. Because we think, like when we were a student, especially in my engineering college, we were like this. Examination or papers will be in the month of March or April. So what is hurry? We have plenty of time, so we enjoy going to watching the movies, having entertainment, and so on. And when month of March comes, then just in 1 month, we want to study the complete syllabus. So studying night after night means not even sleeping, just 3 hours, 4 hours, but competition. But it was not better time management. So many people think they have plenty of time to get it done. So it is better to postpone or procrastinate. Another reason is perfectionism. Some people are afraid that they will not be able to meet their high standards. That's why it is better to procrastinate. It is better to postpone. Seventh reason is also ambiguity. People are not sure what needs to be done. So they're not clear about it, and that's why they want to postpone something. So these are some of the reasons why people procrastinate. And if any of these reasons are there in our life, we need to remove it. What causes procrastination, as we discussed? As per the science, procrastination as the fight is sparked between two parts of the brain. Whenever you postpone, so science tells that these two parts of our brain there is a fight. When it is faced with an unpleasant activity or assignment, there are many assignments, many tasks to perform, sometimes unpleasant. And when we are faced with anything which is unpleasant activity, we don't like it, then we want to, there is a fight between our two lobes of the brain, to do, not to do. It is kind of a battle of the limbic system, which is known as unconscious zone, that includes pleasure center, because doing something you will not be pleased. So this is one part of the brain, which is limbic system. It tells that no. And the other part which is against it, it is prefrontal cortex, which is much more recently evolved part of the brain. And that is basically your internal planner. So when the limbic system wins, which is very often, the result is putting off for tomorrow what could be done today. It offers temporary relief from the unpleasant feeling for whatever reason, not wanting to do something. So here is a more scientific backup. You can stop blaming yourself, because when you postpone, so always there is some blame game. The limbic system, which is one of the oldest and most dominant portions of the brain, is on automatic. For example, the limbic system tells you to pull your head away from flame. When you go closer to fire, limbic system sends a signal that go away from the flame, and also to flee from unpleasant tasks. It is set up to perform your basic survival instincts. In other words, it directs you to opt for immediate mood repair. Now the question comes, how to break the habit of procrastination? One of the best solutions for procrastination is outsmarting it. You can retrain your brain to react differently to an unpleasant assignment or task. I will know, you can retrain your brain, because brain has already programmed. You have to retrain your brain to react differently to an unpleasant assignment or any task. The question comes, how? There is mindfulness. Be mindful and your programming will change. During my marketing job, we learned some principles. One of them was DIN, having DIN approach, D-I-N. You'll ask, what is this? DI means do it now. Anything comes, do it now. Don't postpone that. Okay, let me see, let me think. This is not the right way. Do it now. So you can maintain a do it now list for your designated or delegated job, that, okay, these are the jobs I have to do. So do it now, and something which can be postponed for tomorrow, that is fine. But most of the things you'll find do it now approach, and you can finish it in time. Second thing we were taught, do not delete the task till it is done. Many times it happens that we make a list. Even in the meetings, I found that we make a list, we discuss, let's say we discuss 10 points. So action item for the next meeting, we have to do this. And by the time next meeting comes, again, 10 points we include and we forget, and it is getting postponed month after month. And so anything which we have on the plate, not to delete that until the task is done. You have to follow up it again. Third thing, do not believe your ears and see with your eyes that job is done. I had a bitter experience about this point during the centenary celebration of Gurudev in Cuttack. We had a meeting with Guruji at night. So whole day we were working very hard. sleeping only 2 to 2.5 hours for a month. Every day, like 12:30 at night, 1 o'clock at night, we in the morning we had a meeting. Guruji is taking meeting and then asking, okay, tomorrow these are the tasks. So we had different committees. All the people are there. So one day it happened, Guruji asked, so tomorrow we have meditation at 5 places according to different languages simultaneously to take place at 5, in the morning. Now, all these places are ready. Are they cleaned? All the arrangements are done. So the committee head said, yes, Baba. And because I was the in charge, total in charge for management, so I said, okay, if everything is ready, Baba said, okay, everything is ready tomorrow. Yes, yes, Baba, because he has reported. I did not see it in my own eyes. I just believed him. Next day morning, out of 5, 3 places were not ready. There was it was not even cleaned, no proper carpeting, and I was in trouble. So don't believe your ears and see with your eyes that job is done. Otherwise, it is postponed and you will be in trouble. So it is said by Christopher Parker, an English actor, it says that procrastination is like credit card. It's a lot of fun until you get the bill. This is a very beautiful message. Procrastination is like a credit card. It's a lot of fun until you get the bill. What is procrastination? Okay, I'm definitely going to do or finish it tomorrow. Anything is there, do it now. Remember, if we complete the task when we are given within time schedule, not only we save the time, but always maintain our happiness. Otherwise, we are always stressed out. It is something you can start practicing anywhere, anytime, simply by letting yourself become fully aware of what is going on, both around you and within you at a given moment. This is called mindfulness, remaining conscious. This act of simply becoming aware of and curious about the sensations. For example, I'm hungry. I don't want to send this email. Or being near this person makes me nervous. These, then this is the key to slow down or curb your anxiety and breaking negative habit loops like procrastination. So best is that do it now, be in present moment, and remain mindful, means remain conscious. Our minds learn through reward-based learning. Remember, our minds learn through reward-based learning. And this remaining conscious, or in other words, mindfulness, taps right into the reward-based process to help us step out of procrastination. So in spiritual life, one of our senior monk had taught me during Brahmachari training course, if you have to do something good, don't postpone, do it now. If you feel taking revenge with someone, postpone it for tomorrow, don't do it now. Anything good, do it now. Anything which is not good, you can postpone. And ultimately, Paramahansa Yoganandaji said, you can postpone every single thing, not your realization. Your spiritual practice is the priority of life. You cannot postpone that. Okay, today I did not meditate, tomorrow I'll do. So any good thing, do it today. Let's move to the next test. It is, although we have discussed, but similar to the previous one. Do you ever doubt the honesty of others? Yes, this is also one of the bad qualities sometimes we have. Doubting is the function of mind we discussed earlier. Because Sanshayatmaka Manaha, mind is doubting faculty. But when we live together, we live in society, we live in the families, doubting the honesty of others is never good. Remember, nobody is a cheater. People are honest by nature. Sometimes it may happen that here and there, couple of people may be not honest, but still, when we keep someone, we should not doubt the honesty of the person. We should always trust, because relationship builds on trust. We have to build that trust. And when we trust other people, I'm not telling blind belief, but give that person opportunity to improve. You have to trust. If you doubt constantly about the honesty of someone, it can never improve. Most of the time, we doubt others' sincerity, intentions, actions. And actually, what is happening? We are projecting our own insecurity. When we doubt others' integrity, others' honesty, that means we are projecting our own insecurity. And this is especially true in closer relationship, like husband and wife. Remember, insecure people ruin their relationship because they're constantly talking or operating from doubt, hate, and fear. There is no trust. Because suspicion is in their being, they have a very miserly life. Either keep, as we discussed in last time when we discussed about do you doubt others, either keep your employee and trust them, or do not keep them at all. This is what I told that in one of my meetings, my managing director had told that either keep your employee or even a member of your group, either keep that person and trust, or better not to keep. Keeping a person and then not trusting and doubting the honesty is not going to help any one of us, neither me nor you. Sanshayatma vinashyati, one who doubts is destroyed. In Bhagavad Gita we discussed. Well, we'll discuss next. So you have to ask yourself, do you doubt the honesty of others? And the next question comes, this is also a common thing. At least I have found in many organizations when I was working, as well as even in spiritual organization, because humans are everywhere. When people are working, people means they have their own mind. And when mind comes into play, we see all kinds of these good and bad qualities, habits, and so on. Let us ask this question. Do you blame others for your own faults? Do you blame others for your own faults? Like you see in the picture, it's not me, it is their fault, it is his fault, her fault, and so on. As a human being, we commit mistakes and we learn from those mistakes. But when we commit mistake, do we shift our responsibility on others and blame others? Or we take our responsibility? It is much easier to place the blame on someone else than to take full responsibility for our action. It's very easy just to shift the blame. It is also easier to blame someone for our actions rather than take a deeper look why we made the mistake that we did and face possible consequences. Whether it was something you did at work or something that happened in the family, but it is very common. It is easy, so we start blaming others for our failure, for our own actions, for anything which happened which we didn't like. Oh, I'm not responsible. It is because of that person. Typically, when we engage in this behavior of blaming, people around us might start to resent us or even walk away. Another thing which can be observed very easily, that whenever there is blame game between people, there can be loss of communication or trust. People who are victimized start to feel like they are walking on eggshells and avoid communicating to prevent having to experience the blaming. Blaming others obviously is not just affecting you in the long term, it also affects those who are pointing fingers at. So, a couple of things about this blame game. We should be honest about our wants. This is what I have experienced in professional organizations very many times, that we are not honest about telling that what really we want from others. Let's say employees or our own colleagues. We are not clear. We don't honestly tell what we want and then we blame. We fail to tell others what we want and then we start blaming. Suppose I had a boss. This boss was never clear that what exactly she wants. And when the work is done, then starts blaming, oh, this is not right. You should have done like this. This person has spoiled my work. I have heard many times. Why? Why not in the very first place you make clear things that this is what I want from you? And here we fail. We fail to tell others that what really we want. And after that, we start blaming, oh, you didn't do right thing. This is not right approach. So we should be honest. So be honest about your wants. Second thing, express your desire. Even if it might feel uncomfortable, why? To give others a chance. Because if we don't express our desire, we are not giving an opportunity to other person. Sometimes we feel that other person might be very uncomfortable if I tell this, that I want this thing to be done in such a way. But even if it is uncomfortable, you express that this is what things should be done and we expect. So that the person has an opportunity, a chance to do things in the right way, also to improve for the next time. But we need to be honest in telling what exactly is needed, especially when we deal with people around us. Even in personal relationship, I have found that wife or husband, they're not able to tell what exactly they expect from each other. And then they start blaming. With our children, we are not clear. We are not telling honestly what exactly we need sometimes. And then we start blaming, oh, he or she has spoiled this, destroyed this work, and so on. Another good thing you see, this is a nice way. It is about blame game. Always remember, when we blame others, it is we are telling that we are bad. How? If you see here, when you point an accusing finger at someone like this, when you point an accusing finger at someone, and because we use this finger represents our ego. You did it. We say you did it. So when we are pointing one finger, we should not forget the three fingers are facing us. They are pointing at us. That means if I tell someone you are bad, so I am bad 3 times because 3 fingers are pointing at me. So instead of blaming others, I need to take my responsibility. But we do it very often. Anything happens, immediately shift the responsibility, blame others, because that's the easiest way. Remember, it is always easy to blame others. You can spend your entire life blaming the world, but your success and failures are entirely your own responsibility. No one is responsible for that. When you blame and criticize others, you are avoiding some truth about yourself. Contemplate on this point. Whenever we blame and criticize others, we really trying to avoid some truth about our own personality. Another thing, you are not a failure until you start blaming others for your mistakes. This is a quote from John Wood. You are not a failure until you start blaming others for your mistakes. When you check your mind properly, you stop blaming others for your problems. So it is our mind. So when we check our mind, then we know that where is wrong. Then we stop blaming others for our problem at least. People are not responsible. Let's think about how to be free from this habit of blaming. Number one, take responsibility. As we discussed, no one is responsible except our own self. So let us take our responsibility. Anything happened, not to blame. Whether it is pleasant, unpleasant, whatever it is, let us take responsibility. And a good leader always takes responsibility. Second thing, ask for honest feedback from family and friends. Whenever such situation is there that this blame game, honestly ask for the feedback from others, your family members, your friends, because they will provide you feedback and then you can see where was wrong. Third thing is do honest self-analysis. Many of us, we analyze others only. We analyze situation, people. We do not dare to analyze our own self. Self-analysis is the tool for a spiritual person to take out all the flaws from the character, from our personality. So how to become a mature person? Do self-analysis. Self-analysis and honest self-analysis. Guruji has recommended many times when something happened, he said, do your honest self-analysis, and when we really see, we find the fault, where was the problem, and then we rectify it. So take responsibility, ask for feedback, and do your honest self-analysis. It will help you to be free from this habit of blaming others. Now, another test. So it is point number 17. This is also very common in workplaces, in many organizations. Someone is given responsibility. Someone, by grace of God or gurus, got some position. And then what we see, people start bossing. They start bossing. They think that everything is running because of them. They forget that it is not the person, it is the position which can be, person can be changed. The position remains, but because of power, because of position, people start bossing others, and this is not really good habit. So whether it is family, whether it is workplace, this is not a good habit. What is the meaning of being bossy or bossing others? If you describe someone as bossy, you mean that they enjoy telling people what to do. Very common. Some people have this habit, telling everyone what they need to do. They don't follow. That's a different story, but it is their nature to tell others, you should do this, you should not do this, without asking even. I also get a lot of advice sometimes, but I listen because there are many good advice, there are many feedbacks. So I try to analyze and incorporate those. But some synonyms for this bossy nature is domineering, lordly, arrogant, and authoritarian. So these are also synonyms. Authority. People love authority and power. What does it mean? Another meaning of being bossy means you frequently advise or preach others, but practice none yourself. Another meaning is that you look down on others and feel more superior to them, judging their level of knowledge, based on external experience or external appearance. There is a model in managements they teach. That is this model they call DISC model about the bossy nature. What is the DISC model? It is to analyze the personality. And if you analyze, you can find where do you fall in which category or quarter. There are 4 quarters. They call it DISC, D-I-S-C. So D means this is the quarter. If you see in the slide, D is that quarter where your personality is like dominant. So D indicates dominance. This type of people tend to be confident and place an emphasis on accomplishing bottom line results. So where they were dominant. Then I represents here influence. It is influential personality. This kind of people tend to be more open and place an emphasis on relationship, not on the work only, but relationship and influencing or persuading others. So this is influential personality. Third is S. S means steadiness. This type of personality, when people have, they tend to be more dependable and place the emphasis on cooperation and sincerity. And the fourth kind of personality is conscientiousness. They tend to place the emphasis on quality, accuracy, expertise, and competency. Not necessarily that you may be one of these personality, but sometimes you may be a mixture of 2 or 3 personality. So once you do your self-analysis, you will find in which quarter you are or what kind of personality you are, and then you can improve that. Okay, I have this, because once you know yourself, you can act in a better way. But not knowing your positives, or you can say the strength and negatives, your weaknesses, when you act, then you will be in trouble. So know your strength and know your weaknesses. So which kind of personality you are, it is a model, DISC model in management they teach. Now the question comes that bossy nature is never good because we spoil our relationship. If you want to stop being bossy, then you have to learn to give up some control and to have faith in the people around you. So some of the solution, what we can do about this nature, how to be free from bossy nature, whether it is home or our workplace or any organization. Couple of things we can discuss about how to be from this bossy nature, being too much authoritarian, too much arrogant, too much power. People want power. So my teacher had told me when I was in college days, he said that getting power is a different thing and using the power is completely different thing. Suppose you become president of a company. So you get power, you get authority, but how to use that authority in right way, it is totally different. If you are not sincere, if you are not qualified for that position, then you will make a mess. However, how to be free? Number one, these are very practical points. This I have found in many people. They are very, they are perfect. They are perfectionist. Everything should be perfect as they want. It should be done this way, means this way. And then they put their authority on others. They impose others to do like that. So let go of perfectionism. Remember, everybody cannot be perfect. There will always be some imperfections. So don't worry about those. So let go of perfectionism. Second thing, be patient. Third thing, strive for consensus, which very often we don't do. Strive for consensus, not that my will is the everything. And fourth thing, ask for honest feedback. So in this, how to ask? You have to ask, what should I do, stop doing? Means what I have done, which is creating trouble, being authoritarian. So what should I do? What should I stop doing? Second, what should I keep doing? And what should I start doing? These three things, if you ask, it is the, after getting feedback, you'll be able to know the answer of these things. When people give you honest feedback, and remember, they will give you feedback only when they trust you. So what should I stop doing? What should I keep doing? And what should I start doing so that I will not be a bossy person? Now, fifth point, learn to admit where you go wrong. We make mistakes, as we discussed, but to admit the mistake is the sign of humility, is the sign of maturity. It is the sign that you are very strong in character. When we commit mistake, there's nothing wrong. We should admit, yes, I committed a mistake. Let me rectify it. Otherwise, what happens? We'll never be able to rectify those mistakes. Sixth is have realistic expectations from others. Very often we expect a lot from others, and these are not practical expectations. For example, we expect everybody to achieve something. Suppose there is a project. In the project, there is a team, and every team member should be like this. It may not be possible always, because each person has a different capacity. One can be a good speaker, one can be a good cook. But if you expect a cook to be a good speaker, it is impractical. So realistic expectation should be there. And we have to be more flexible. If you're bossy, so be more flexible. Let others make decision. This is very good point, that when you're authoritarian, when you're bossy, you want to take decision, and that makes the things worst. So let others also make decision. Another thing, start delegating the job. Don't keep everything on you, with you. You have to delegate. That will ease out you, that will reduce your stress, as well as work will be done in a much better way. Very often, those who are bossy, they don't delegate. Last is stop giving advice when it is not needed. People may not welcome it, because nobody wants that people should control. Everybody wants some freedom. So there should be cooperation, not control. There should be understanding, not authority. So these are some ways where we can improve ourselves from our bossy nature. Next is question number 18. You have to ask, are you easily distracted? Are you easily distracted? Then this is very often because of the cell phones. It's very distracting. It is a good instrument helping us, but at the same time, we are not conscious. We are too much engaged with it, and we make a mess. So, are you easily distracted? You have to ask, because this is directly related to your state of mind. So because time, we are running out of time, we'll stop our discussion. And next 3 points we'll discuss in our next class. So this is time for meditation. We'll meditate for a short while. Please sit straight. Keep your head, neck, and the spine in a straight line. Concentrate in between the eyebrows. The midpoint of your eyebrows is called soul center. withdrawing your attention from the external world. Become aware of your body. Introverting your mind. Focus completely in the third eye. Let us begin with watching the breath. Mindfulness. Watch each inhalation and exhalation with deep love. Feel every breath is the presence of God. Just observe how breath is moving in, going out. As you become aware of your breath, your thoughts will start settling down. Just remain relaxed. Being conscious of breath means to remain in present moment. To bring our mind to state of calmness, let us practice some deep breaths. Inside the spine, two poles. On top of the head, the fontanelle. Bottom of the spine, the root chakra. Between these two, let us observe the movement of our subtle breath. Slow, long, deep inhalation with feeling of love. Slow, long, deep exhalation, feeling peace around. Inhale, love. Exhale, peace. Inhale, love. Exhale, peace. Inhale, love. Exhale, peace. Inhale, peace. Exhale, love. Inhale, peace. Exhale, love. Inhale, peace. Exhale, love. Inhale, love. Exhale, peace. Inhale, love. Exhale, peace. Normal conscious breath. Your body is completely steady. Breath becomes slow and very feeble as if you are not breathing. Mind is calm. Inside the cranium, inner space, merge there in formless state and silently meditate. divine, blissful state. Beyond thought, beyond body and mind. Gently bring your attention back to the third eye. These moments of silence and calmness, you have to extend in all your activities, every breath, feeling presence of God. Praying for all. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all become happy and healthy, loving, noble, and compassionate. May there be no suffering or sorrow. May there be more love, peace, harmony among us and in this entire creation. May the blessings of God and Masters be upon us all. Om. Amen. Thank you all. So in the next class, we'll conclude our series of this lecture, 20 points about the test of our character. Till then, meditate nicely. My love and prayer to you all. Remain healthy, happy, be divine. Thank you all.